Good morning. It is really hot today, and I was just thinking, I had this brilliant idea that maybe I would record myself, showing you some of the decks that I play regularly in Forge, and then also show you like a demonstration of how they play to, I don't know, maybe stimulate your mind and get you interested in things. So I was inspired particularly by playing around with this deck, which I find very interesting. It's not one I've made myself. It's not one that I actually own either, because it's probably more expensive than I can actually afford to ever pay for trading cards. But it's I very much like playing this deck because it just feels very gratifying and kind of, I don't know. Okay, let me try that again. So, yes, getting right to business. This deck is very heavily built around two enchantments, which we have here, and they're very similar in function. In fact, one of them was developed basically as a way to repair the first one. How well they worked out is debatable, but here they are. This is the original. This is, not sure if that's a good picture. Let's see. I know the other editions have like a higher resolution scan, but the text isn't as good on those because it was printed in ancient times. And oh no, okay. That's great. Yes, let's look at this. So Necropotence. This was originally printed in God, when was it? I think it was like fall 1995. In a set called Ice Age, which was. Well, it's important because it was the first set that introduced the concept of blocks as release schedule elements. That's not very relevant to this, though. This enchantment was printed in Ice Age, and it was not really, its strength wasn't really estimated well at release. It took a couple of months for people to figure out what they actually could do with it, but the effect was pretty dramatic because the World's Grand Prix, one of the very first, in fact, was in the summer of 1996, and practically every single deck at that tournament was built around this card, and basically all the ones that weren't were specifically designed to, counteract decks that were built around this card. So it was a pretty dramatic effect on the metagame as such. But let's see what it does. So it's an enchantment for 3 black mana. You skip your draw step. That is the first, most obvious thing, which is a pretty big drawback, especially at first glance. But as we will see, maybe it's pretty much a fair price to ask, considering what it actually does. Okay, so whenever you discard a card, you exile it from your graveyard. And you can pay 1 life at any time to exile a top card of your library, face down, so you don't see what it is. And at the beginning of your next end step, so when you end your turn, it goes into your hand. What this means is, essentially, playing Necropotence, you can pay life to draw any number of cards that you like and get them in your hand at the end of your turn. So, you're not restricted to waiting to end your turn and start your, to start your turn to get a new card, and you're not restricted to a single card draw per turn as such. So if you fill your deck with cards that work well with such an ability, it can do some pretty cool stuff. As I said, this card dominated the metagame for a very short period quite heavily, and it was banned pretty quickly as a result afterwards. Wizards tried again to do something similar, I want to say 3 years later. When was this? Hang on, let me look this up, because this scan, this isn't actually a scan, this is from MTG Online, which is obviously doesn't use printed cards, so it's just a screenshot. Let's see. Oh god, the search bar isn't, oh no. Right. Okay. Give me a sec here. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Almost bargain. No, that's the same. Okay, well, you can kind of, it's not as much text, so that's okay. It's also an enchantment. It costs 4 colorless and 2 black, so it's twice as much as Necropotence. Again, you skip your draw step, but the ability is much simpler this time. You can just pay 1 life and draw a card immediately. So actually, if you manage to get it out effectively, which is very easy with this sort of deck, as we will discover, it is considerably better, so it's much more comfortable to play, and you don't have to wait until you enter turn to get your cards into your hand. Okay, so now we've seen what we're using as engines basically in this deck, and let's see what we actually use to win. I'm going to take out the lands because obviously, okay, actually yes, I should mention, mostly swamps. Swamps are pretty important in this deck because this deck being built around old cards, at this time, these days, the card that is the color that is usually associated with creating a lot of mana in very short periods, very effectively, is red. But back in the days, there was some sort of, well, there was basically a split between black and red being those colors, and a lot of these cards here, as you will discover, do very much speak to that. The most important non-basic land that we have is Cabal Coffers, which, as you can see here, we pay 2 and tap it, and we get it generates black mana equal to the number of swamps that we have. So as long as we have more than 2 swamps, this gives us, an extra, however many, whatever the difference is, basically. We also have a strip mine for, well, if your opponent has a really important land that you need to blow up, I guess. I have never personally had to use it, but I haven't encountered a land-based deck yet, so, Okay, I'm gonna take those out. Wait, try that again. I'm gonna take those out. There we go. As you can see, not a very creature-heavy deck. We have 6 in total, and of those, there's only 2 unique cards. Actually, I can show you those right now because they are... I wouldn't say they're the main win condition. I mean, is there really a main win condition in this deck? I don't know. They're pretty strong, though. So, we got one pulled up right here. This is Laquatus' Champion. It costs 6 mana total. When it comes into play, your opponent, you would say, loses 6 life. If it leaves play, they get that 6 life back. And you can pay 1 black mana to regenerate it, so, it's pretty easy to keep it on the field and not get the leaving play effect from it. And it's 6/3, which is pretty decent. The toughness is a bit on the weak side. You can often encounter creatures at a similar cost that your opponent may have. It can easily kill it, but you can just regenerate it, and then it's no problem. The other creature that we have is, where is it? I should order these by alphabetical order. Let's see. Nantuko Shade, yes. This is very good. Like, you can see here. The use of tremendous amounts of mana, because, well, it's 2 black mana, 2/1, but we can pump it as much as we want and give it +1/+1 just by spending 1 black mana. So we can make a bunch of that and pour it straight into this guy, and then deliver 10+ damage in a single attack. Okay, that's the creatures dealt with. Like I said, obviously you have to manipulate your ability to get cards into your hand and on the field for Necropotence and similar effects to be worth it. So, let's see, should I go through the utilities or the actual interesting stuff first? Well, let's see. We do have some hand disruption cards here. The most basic of these is Duress, which just lets us, first off, it lets us see our entire opponent's hand regardless of what happens, so that's very useful at all times. And then we can choose a non-creature, non-land card, and they have to discard it, which is great for pinpoint hand disruption. Similarly, there's the Hymn to Torah, which randomly discards 2 cards. And Mind Twist, which again we can pour, because it has a variable cost, so we can spend as much mana as we want on it, and again, that's a random discard effect for X cards, which is great. I think that's all of it, right? Yes. Yeah, okay. Otherwise, We have a couple tutors, which are very useful. A tutor is a card that lets you find other cards from your library, generally speaking. And actually, Demonic Tutor that we have here is the most iconic of these. It's another one of those cards that's banned in practically every format except the most restrictive, where it is limited to 1 copy per deck, as we have here. And it just lets us look for any card in our deck and put it into our hand for 2 mana, which is great. Similarly, we have the Vampiric Tutor, which costs 1 less, but in return we have to pay 2 life, and it doesn't go in our hand, it goes on top of our library, so we just draw it next turn. Or in fact, we draw it immediately if we have one of the enchantments out. Yes. Okay. One of the most important alternative ways to utilize the great amounts of mana that we can make is Drain Life. The mana cost is a bit confusingly written on this card because it's so old. As you can see, well, it has a base cost of 1 colorless, 1 black, but it should actually really have an X in there. You can spend as much mana as you want, except it has to be black, and then it just deals that amount of damage to a target of your choice, and you also get that damage back in the form of life. So that's very useful for spot removal of creatures, and obviously replenishing the life that you lose, paying it to draw cards. So, yes. Similarly, for emergency life recovery, we have the Zuran Orb, which costs nothing. That's always a bonus. And you can just sacrifice any land to gain 2 life immediately. So you can, basically, if you suddenly find yourself at a disadvantage, you can just blow up all your lands and maybe get another turn out of it. As a miscellaneous utility spell, we have Yawgmoth's Will, which is another one of these excellent, mostly banned cards. For 3 mana, we can play cards in our graveyard as if they were in our hand. So we can, in fact, we can even get the sort of recursion that we play a spell once and then play it again out of our graveyards. It's great stuff, and it just feels amazing, doesn't it? God. Yes. For passive life recovery, we have the Ivory Tower. Hang on, can I find a better scan of that? I know the old art for this is really pretty. I don't know if we have that on display here, but we find it. Look out the search bar again. No? Oh, yeah, that's worse. Okay, well, whatever. It costs 1 mana, which is cost effective for anything. And at the beginning of our upkeep, we get X life, where X is the number of cards minus 4 in our hand. We can even use this with Yawgmoth's Bargain to draw hands right before our upkeep to a number we actually are not allowed to have at the beginning of the end step. At the beginning of the end step, if you have more than 7 cards in your hand, you have to discard down to 7, obviously. But we can just draw cards instantly, as many as we like, in fact. But obviously there's a functional limit to how much you can play in a turn. But you can get up to 9 and then get 5 life back just for nothing. Right, and really all that's left is... oh, right. Creature removal is always useful. We have 2 spells here which are basically identical. One of them... this is strictly better because it's an instant. You can also choose the player to sacrifice a creature, but I don't really see myself targeting myself with that. But for 2 mana, forcing your opponent to sacrifice a creature is great. Obviously, if they have multiple creatures out and the power levels between them aren't, very close, then it's a bit annoying to use, but it's good. It's good for what it does. And pretty much on the in the same vein, the Cruel Edict, which is obviously the same thing except, as I said, is sorcery, and only opponents can be targeted with it. So, yes, and how do we make all this great mana? Well, it is pretty easy. Okay, oh god. Yes, this is another Magic Online scan, if you will. Let me see if I can find... yeah, that's not great either. Oh my god. Okay, whatever. Again, pretty simple card. I think it looks better that way. 1 black mana, and you get 3 added to your mana pool. So you get a gain of 2 mana. Similarly, obviously, I mean, you can tell by the name. This is what I mean actually by, Magic, subtly referencing its past. Like, just spell names referencing well-known spells, to give you the idea that they're similar. It costs 1 mana extra, but if we have Threshold, which means if we have 7 or more cards in the graveyard, it gives us 5 mana, which again is a gain of 2. So yeah, these in combination with the Cabal Coffers that I mentioned earlier, where we basically get mana for how many swamps we have in the field, can really generate like incredible amounts of black mana in a single turn that you can just pump into whatever thing you have that can take any amount of black mana and turn it into damage. And that's basically how we win. Now, I'm going to stop this recording, and I'm going to get a game in with this, and talk over it and see how that works. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Alright, here we go. I have to try to keep up with myself. Okay, yes, I'm already here. And here I noticed that I have 2 rituals and basically enough land to eventually, if I get 1 more, to play that bargain. So I kept that hand. First play, this is a swamp, nothing interesting here. Second swamp and the orb for free, of course. Why not? Now I'm looking at my hand. There's not much else interesting to say. I have a strip mine as well, which, again, I don't imagine seeing much use here, but we'll see. God, please end the turn. Thank you. God. We get an opponent's creature, which isn't that interesting. It has no other effects besides doing something when it comes into play. Strip mine, and here we go. Ritual for 1 black, eventually. That gives us 3, eventually. God. Okay. The other ritual. Wow. Moving so slowly, that's amazing. Right, gives another 3, 4, and then we can play a 6-mana enchantment in turn 2. No, 3, sorry. Still. And now I just activated 6 times. Pay 6 life. And now I have a full hand of cards again. Isn't that great? I was very distracted, so I got confused constantly and kept trying to play lands because I couldn't remember if I'd already played them. So yeah. Oh, no, actually, never mind. That's gonna happen. Right. Swamp out. Now I'm looking around and wondering if I can play the champion, but I cannot. I don't know why I keep looking at it. And I play the hymn. Or do I? Yes, I did. Okay. And I think next I'm going to play the tower, yes. The tower, you can do something really nice with it, especially, actually only if you have the bargain. Because, of course, it gives you, the more cards you have in your hand during your upkeep, the more it gives you, and the more life you gain from it. And you can actually just activate the bargain's ability as many times as you like, basically, during your upkeep, or as many times as you think you're going to be able to shed cards for it to bring it down to 7 again by the time your turn ends. And you get more life from the tower. Now I'm just looking around. I play the Duress, and I'm seeing what I can take from his hand. And it's basically just what I find most threatening to my potential creatures. And now, yeah, this was an annoying part. I kind of messed up and thought that that was his turn and played that damage. And so, yeah, I thought it'd be my turn now, but actually my turn hadn't ended yet, and now I will have to discard 2 cards, and are pretty frustrating. Almost gave up, but I persevered. This is gonna be slow. Yeah. another swamp, and we can... No, we can't. God, this is embarrassing. Yeah, for some reason I didn't manage to figure out that I have 5 and not 6. So instead, I'm going to play the Shade. God, I already played a land this turn, thank you very much. I'm going to play the Shade. I'm not going to play the Edict because it's not worth wasting it on a 1-3. Already professionally produced. Now I'm staring at my cards again because I forgot what I had in my hand. Now for some reason I'm going to sacrifice the strip mine to get 2 life back because that's really urgent. Oh, and now, wait. No, wait. I know I messed this up at some point, but... No, see, yes, okay. This is another thing you can do in response, of course. You can buff it just to keep it from dying. So now it's a 4-3. It still gets 2 damage, but it will survive that, obviously. Oh my god. The reaction time is not great in this play, I have to say. Another swamp, and if I hadn't been a stupid idiot and blown up that strip mine earlier, I could have played the champion, but now I can't. Why am I showing you that? I don't know. I'm still looking at cards and like doing really slow math in my head, and now I'm gonna... Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna drain life on that Omen Speaker to get something back as well. There we go. And I send the Shade through for another 2 damage. Upkeep time again. You know how this goes. That's just it, you know, you can literally have whenever you want to draw a card, you just draw it. That's amazing. Oh yeah, okay. This is getting good, isn't it? Well, we play a champion first. And that's gonna be good for 6 life points, except I think next turn something bad happens. Yes, now actually. He puts it back on top of my library, which obviously isn't going to last long because I can just draw it immediately, like literally right now. But of course he gets his 6 life back, so that's good enough for him this turn. Please just press OK already. Yes, okay. Now I forgot to attack with Shade because I'm an idiot, but it doesn't matter because... Well, because frankly, I have a... Okay, next turn... I do not want to draw more. I stay there for like 20 hours. And now I ended my turn? No, I didn't. Okay. God. Okay, another swamp. Champion again. 6 life. You know this. Right. And... Okay. I think next turn is when things start heating up, maybe. But, I know this much. See, yes, the Cabal Coffers. Aren't those great? Now you get to see how ridiculous this can be. So we tap that for mana. God damn it. Yeah, okay, I'm showing the Drain Life because that's what we're going to do with it, isn't it? Come on, please. Okay, God. What the fuck am I doing? Okay, after 20 years, finally, yes. So now I have 7 black mana already in my mana pool. And then I have another extra 5. And of course that means I can play Drain Life for 10 damage. Which of course goes right to his face. There we go. And now I'm at a pretty solid 32, and he's at 2, and he can't block 2 creatures, so I win, and that's it. Thank you very much.